Hi, I'm Hadley Robinson, one of the producers of Impromptu. This week, we're bringing you a story from Washington Post contributor Will Leitch. It's about a rock band who, at the peak of their fame, decided to just leave the scene, and what we can all learn from knowing when to quit. Here it is.
I'm Will Leitch, and this is my opinion piece, How the Biggest Rock Band in the World Disappeared, about one of my favorite rock bands, R.E.M. Michael Stipe turned 65 this year. Every generation has its "our childhood heroes are how old now" moment. But there is something about this particular rock star becoming eligible for Medicare that sticks in one's gullet. Kurt Cobain, were he still here, would be just a couple of years from turning 60 himself. So you know. It was 14 years ago this March when R.E.M. and Athens, Georgia foursome that for a stretch of about 5 years in the 1990s was arguably the biggest rock band on the planet, released its final album, Collapse Into Now. 6 months afterward, the band retired, with Stipe saying, quote, "The skill in attending a party is knowing when it's time to leave. We built something extraordinary together. We did this thing, and now we're going to walk away from it." And then R.E.M. did something more or less no other band has ever done. It stopped playing. Barry, Buck, Mills, and Stipe simply walked away. They have played one song together in the last 14 years, Losing My Religion, at their induction into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and they are explicit about it not happening again. When Anthony Mason asked them on a rare media appearance on CBS This Morning last year what it would take for them to reunite, bassist Mike Mills said, "A comet." Reaching your mid-60s is something fortunate rock stars get to do, and they usually spend their golden years making certain the world still cares about them. Mick Jagger and Bruce Springsteen do world tours. Bono plays the Sphere and gets Joe Biden to put a Presidential Medal of Freedom around his neck. Bob Dylan gets a movie made about him. But you rarely, if ever, hear a word from Stipe or any of the other members of R.E.M. Stipe occasionally does solo appearances, including singing at a Kamala Harris rally in Pennsylvania, and he put out a photography book last year, but on the whole, he just quietly goes about his life like the rest of us. The rest of the band's the same way. The other three members of R.E.M. still live in Athens, something I know for certain because I also live in Athens, and I regularly see them walking around, shopping for groceries, getting coffee, watching a baseball game, blending into the architecture. How unassuming are the members of R.E.M.? I ran into drummer Bill Berry at an event once, and when I told him my name was Will, his face lit up. "Our names are so close! My name is Bill!" "Yes, sir, I do know who you are." At the height of its popularity, R.E.M. regularly played before more than 100,000 fans. It was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2007. But because the band is so self-effacing, and because it has resisted nearly every temptation to do the sort of nostalgia maneuvers that keep retired rock acts in the public mind, if you weren't around to listen to R.E.M. during its prime, it's quite possible you've never heard of it. The band has, essentially, disappeared from American culture. There was a boomlet of interest in the band last year because of the Songwriters Hall of Fame induction, a wide-ranging interview Stipe gave to the New York Times, and, mostly, the appearance of the song Strange Currencies on the television show The Bear. But you see kids wearing Nirvana t-shirts they got from Urban Outfitters, not R.E.M. ones. Today's kids have no idea who R.E.M. is, and how could they? Honestly, the only time my kids come across R.E.M. is if they run into one of its members in the supermarket and wonder why their dad just fainted. Part of this retreat from center stage is the uncommon sanity of the band members themselves. The ever-tortured Cobain marveled at how they, quote, dealt with their success like saints. There is so much more money to be made from being R.E.M., but, as guitarist Peter Buck said, the band will not reunite because, quote, it would never be as good. If you happen to see the Rolling Stones on their American tour last year, you know that it not being as good as it used to be certainly didn't stop Jagger and Keith Richards from continuing to perform for their fans' money, nor has it stopped hundreds of other bands. There is something very Generation X about this most Generation X of bands refusing to take a payday just for the sake of reminiscence. There are shades of Lloyd Dobler's "I don't want to sell anything bought or processed" in their insistence on not doing anything their hearts aren't deeply invested in. They made the music, Then they stopped. What more would we want than that? That every Spotify user isn't constantly listening to R.E.M. songs is our fault, not the band's. In retrospect, it is kind of crazy that a group of 4 indie rockers from a college town in Georgia who wrote jangly, wistful songs and were forever obsessed and successful with keeping their indie credibility somehow became the biggest rock band in the world. The band had its moment. It made some truly beautiful, often downright perfect songs, and then it moved on. When Michael Stipe turned 65, he handled it the way we all hope we will when we turn 65, with grace and calm. Cobain may live on in myth, but R.E.M. lives on in life. And the good news, the songs haven't changed at all. They are there whenever you need them, or even if you don't.
I'm going to chat with Will about what inspired this piece and how people responded to it. That's right after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back. I'm Hadley Robinson, producer of Impromptu, and I am here with Will Leitch. Hi, Will.
Hello.
So I love this piece. R.E.M. was actually my first concert.
Oh, wow. What, if you don't mind me asking, what year?
93, 94, 95, somewhere in there.
So like Monster Tour, yeah. I saw Radiohead open for them on that tour. That was so lame that I'm that guy that only knew Creep. So literally, they played all of the bins, one of my favorite albums of all time, but I had not heard it yet.
So what made you want to write this piece? What inspired this?
I first of all, I do live in Athens, Georgia, and I do see the band regularly. And so you kind of can't live in Athens and not feel R.E.M.'s presence, even when they're not here. It's funny, since I wrote this piece, R.E.M. did that brief time where they played 2 songs with Michael Shannon and Jason Narducci. And the band is very careful to say, we did not reunite. We got on stage and played one song together. It was not reuniting. We did not reunite. And I find that admirable in a certain way as someone that has watched in any field, right? Whether it's music or movies or media, certain things that blow up, and then how you respond to that blow up, how the artist responds to that blow up, how the writer responds to it. What do? Do they want to build on it? You find out, do they want to be the biggest rock band in the world, or they just want to make music? And one of the things I've always admired about R.E.M. is not only did they know when to get off the stage, they also understood that the point was not actually just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and doing these nostalgia tours and constantly making as much money as possible. The thing that they made is the thing that they made, and that is what's important.
Yeah, it's pretty extraordinary to just leave at the peak, I mean, who can do that? It's crazy.
And then to say, this is what we made, and it's yours. It's yours, enjoy it, but now we're off to something else. They recognize that what R.E.M. was, they actually find it all kind of surprising and fortunate and lucky anyway. And a certain level, they also know that part of it was just them being in the right place at the right time. They're a wonderful band, and they deserve all the success they got. But these things are often kismet too, right? Them landing in the right place. They know how difficult it would be for a young band to try to recreate how the business has changed, how tastes have changed. And listen, we've all seen it, right? I went to go see the Rolling Stones last year. I took my parents. We had a great time. But Keith is looking a little rough. Keith is missing some notes on the guitar. Mick is still Mick, like Springsteen, they're still bounding around like nothing. But it's clear the songs are not the same, and you can tell it's great to hear Satisfaction Again, but you're not really hearing Satisfaction Again. And so one of the things that R.E.M. I think has been really great about is rather than making you relive these nostalgic moments, it actually allows you to just sort of sit with them.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think it got picked up so much, and why so many people read it?
I think there's something admirable, even if you don't love R.E.M. as much as I do. There's something admirable about people who are in a world where everyone's supposed to always be hustling and always be selling, there is this very Gen X idea of not selling out. And like it's now an idea that's gone. It is mostly gone from the public consciousness. Only people in Gen X people like me are like, remember back in the day when we did that? There's a certain privilege in that. There's a certain idea that like, well, that was a time where maybe you could get away with not just constantly trying to hustle. But I think there is a nostalgia in that. And there's a certain admiration you have for people that are not constantly trying to hawk themselves or trying to sell themselves or constantly looking for attention or trying to grab the spotlight. I think there is an admiration for the peace that R.E.M. seems to have found with the idea of, we made this work for you. We are not going to drag it out to go on to some world tour just so we can make a bunch of money. We made the music. We love the music. We're proud of the music. We hope you love the music. But we've moved on to a different place in our lives. And I think that's something that everyone aspires to, everyone would love to be able to get to. And to see a band that was once the biggest rock band in the world successfully do that, I think was inspirational for a lot of people.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, thanks, Will.
So, of course, holler anytime you all need anything.
This episode was produced by me, Hadley Robinson, and Regina DeHeer, and mixed by Emma Munger. Thanks, as always, for joining us, and we'll be back in your feeds next Tuesday. See you then.